I'm JP Tuesday.
And I'm Kiki Canon. We've been Disney fans our entire lives. And now, as childless adults, we're undertaking a journey through the media that shaped our lives.
Trying to find out if what made them special is still there.
We are
Rewatching the Magic.
Hi, Kiki.
Hi, Tuesday.
Well, it's time to go to another faraway land. The land of Was, where apparently we have twice the fun because every single thing is really 2 in 1, which somehow means a lot of laughs. According to this, says they have a split personality and it's full of originality. They're the Wuzzles. Ooh, yeah. So yes, we are talking about the Wuzzles, and the Wuzzles was one of Disney's first original animated shows. Premiered the same day, at the same time as the Gummy Bears, on 2 different networks, obviously. And obviously, the Gummy Bears lasted a lot longer than the Wuzzles did. Wuzzles only lasted 1 season. Now Now, do you remember the Wuzzles, Kiki?
Yeah, but I think I remember it more as like a toy commercial.
There was a lot of stuffed animals, things, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I remember like the commercials for it, but I don't really remember the show. Like, I remember the show was a thing, but I was thinking, okay, I would have been like 4 or something when this came out. So maybe it was one of those things where I just don't remember it, but maybe my parents like shoved me in front of the screen and I watched it or whatever. And so I mentioned it to my father and he was like, I've never even heard of that. What is that? Is it a Disney thing? So apparently no, I did not. This was never a part of my childhood.
Well, like I said, it premiered the same time as Gummy Bears. So if you were watching Gummy Bears, you were not watching the Wuzzles.
Yeah, at the time it wasn't. You know, later they would replay it on Disney Channel and stuff. But we've already talked about the fact that I didn't get Disney Channel until way later than everybody else did. So, I probably missed it on that too. So yeah, this is just like a complete blank to me. I kind of knew the concept because I remembered it from like seeing commercials. It's like, oh, it's 2 animals and we've shoved them together into a nightmarish mix of something.
Yeah, I mean, apparently the word Wuzzle means to mix up. I've never heard of the word before the show nor after, but apparently that's what they say the word means. I don't know where this comes from, but that's what they say it means.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in the context of the show, that's what the word means. But again, it's just,
Again, this was definitely like Gummy Bears came from Eisner. It was his, he wanted Disney to push into television animation, and this was their attempt at it.
Can we maybe not let Michael Eisner come up with cartoon ideas?
Well, he did, like I said, he came up with Gummy Bears and,
Yeah, but the thing is his contribution to Gummy Bears seems to have been make a show and call it Gummy Bears. I'm not exactly sure that, like, set it in a medieval fantasy land and give it a story and make one character a princess and make the bears these magical creatures with a potion that apparently suffered a genocide before that. Like, I don't think that was Eisner's idea. I think Eisner's idea was,
my kid likes Gummy Bears.
My kid likes to eat gummy bears, make that a cartoon.
Yeah.
And this one seems to have been, they're like 2 animals, but you shove them together and now they're 1 animal. Go make it a cartoon. Like, I'm not really finding where he was really in the nuts and bolts of the creative. He may have been, but it's not anything I've found.
Again, maybe it came up, well, who has an idea for a show? Well, I have this cartoon idea about taking 2 animals and make them into a new animal. And they're all for little kids. I mean, We can make toys out of it. Good. Make it happen. Give me 13 episodes.
Yeah, I think the idea of we can make toys out of it came first.
This
by
definitely,
far.
even based on the toys themselves, this feels like it was Disney's answer to the Care Bears.
Yeah, and now I had some Care Bears as a kid. I'm not saying like I was a huge Care Bear fan. I definitely know people who are way bigger into that than I was, but you know, I had like the blue depression bear, and I think I had the green luck bear.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if there was a depressing children's toy, I was gonna be all over that. So you know, I had the sad one, I remember, but it was another thing. Some of these shows from when we were kids, I remember having the toys, but not really watching the show. Like I had strawberry shortcake ones, but I don't remember watching Strawberry Shortcake. I had a Rainbow Bright doll, but I do not remember watching Rainbow Bright. Part of this may have come from the fact that so many of these children's shows had some kind of element of magic. And like if I'd have been younger when Harry Potter came out, I would have definitely been in the you can't read Harry Potter because Harry Potter is satanic kind of crowd. Like it was the same thing. Like that didn't start with Harry Potter. That started with, you know, you can't watch this because they talk about magic, and you can't watch that because they talk about whatever. I couldn't watch Captain Planet. Yeah.
Can't play Dungeons and Dragons because it's satanic.
That too. Although that didn't come up until I was in high school, and by that point we were kind of getting out of that culture, so that didn't last for long. But Magic the Gathering was definitely I couldn't play Magic the Gathering because of that. I couldn't watch Captain Planet because it talked about both environmentalism and magic. So, you know, it was one of those things. So I'm thinking that I missed a lot of these shows possibly because of that sentiment. Because it's really the only explanation I have for why I would have had a Rainbow Bright doll and have no memory of Rainbow Bright as a cartoon. You know, I had like Beetlejuice, the cartoon toys, but I had never seen the movie Beetlejuice or the cartoon based on it. At that age. So a lot of these things really only existed as toys to me. I don't remember ever having a Wuzzles toy, but I'm not ruling out the possibility.
Well, it was the 80s, and back then, even a little bit now, the cartoons was just a commercial for you to buy the toy.
Yeah. And boy, is that apparent when you watch the show.
Yeah. So let's kind of get into it. It's more of the designs are more of we have the body of one animal and the head of another animal. And they all have wings for some reason, even if they're not mixed with any kind of bird or insect.
Yeah, the wings was the part where it's like, oh, it's a hippo and a bunny, and my brain was kind of like, all right, it's a hippo bunny, and then it's like, and also it has wings, and my brain was like, no, it doesn't, it cannot possibly have wings.
So apparently all Wuzzles have wings, regardless of what animals they've been merged with. And I remember watching the Wuzzles as a kid. I've kind of mentioned this in our Gummy Bears episode that I watched the Wuzzles more than I watched the Gummy Bears growing up. And I have not watched it in a very long time, and this rewatch really was a wake up call on this show, and we'll get more into it when we get really into the meat of it. So it's like I remember these characters. I remember at least one of the episodes that we watched for this podcast. But it's like I remember the story going a lot differently. Maybe it was my childhood mind filling in gaps and making it better than I thought it was, or just I was young and it was entertaining enough for, 4-year-old, 5-year-old me.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is another one where it's like, if I'd have seen this at a younger age, this might have been my thing.
And like Gummy Bears, this also had a bit of a theatrical release, as the first episode was released in the United Kingdom as the short preceding the re-release of Bambi.
That's a tonal shift.
Yeah.
Bambi's mom! No!
Here, go watch the cute little moose seal.
Yeah.
And speaking of that, it's apparently, according to everything that I could look up, this show was canceled because of one of the voice actors dying, Bill Scott, who voices Moosel in the show.
Yeah.
And, which is weird because Bill Scott was in several other shows, including the Gummy Bears, and they simply recasted him. Which makes you wonder what kind of decision would they be making to cancel the show because an actor died rather than do a recast, especially an animated show where really the kids would not notice the difference.
Yeah, I think pretty much now, I think pretty much the only show that really does that ever is Simpsons. Like, when the voice actor dies, the character's just gone.
Or at least become silent. The only exception has been characters more recently, Sherry and Terry, but they were both voiced by Rusty Taylor, and she passed away last year, and they decided instead of also Martin voiced Martin in the show, and they simply, rather than have those characters be silent, were recasted with Greg Griffin doing the voice of Sherry and Terry now.
Yeah, honestly, I had not heard that, but it surprises me because for years that's been the thing. If the voice actor dies, the character is just like, if you see them, it's like in the background, or they don't speak, or it's a flashback, or they just kill off the character. Yeah,
like they killed off Marvin Monroe, they killed off Troy McClure, and they killed off Mrs. Krabappel.
Yeah, they killed Mrs. Krabappel, and honestly, you couldn't have recast her. I don't think anybody would have stood for that.
No.
But yeah, for a kids show, especially in the 80s, that's strange. So I do wonder if it was just like, this wasn't getting the ratings we want, and we'll use this as a convenient scapegoat.
Again, when considering how long Gummy Bears lasted, and in these two shows where Disney was competing against itself, I could see that happening.
Yeah. So let's talk about the characters here and the actors who portray them.
First off, the narrator, the most prominent character in this show, the narrator, voiced by legendary voice actor Stan Freberg. And you and I know Stan Freberg very well, especially his comedy songs, as we're both fans of the Dr. Demento show.
Yeah, and Stan Freberg was and continues to be. Dr. Demento is still every week. DrDemento.com. Go download his show. It is awesome and still running. But Stan Freberg, very frequent even to this day. On
that
Dr.
show, yeah.
Will still play those songs. He was a great satirist and used a lot of a lot of silly sounds. Did a lot of stuff with Mel Blanc.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of radio stuff back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of commercials as well.
Also the voice of Pete Puma in the Looney Tunes. A whole lot of love. Yeah.
Oh yeah. He did a lot of voice work. Had a very expressive voice. He doesn't really use it to full effect in this show because it's very much a narrator voice.
It's
just
regular
his
voice.
Speaking voice.
Mm-hmm.
But much like I wouldn't compare him vocally to Mel Blanc, of course, but in a similar vein, he could do a lot of silly voices and impressions, and so he had a pretty interesting vocal range, and back during the 40s and 50s, man, he was, he was huge.
Mm-hmm.
By the 80s, he was kind of a there for the parents, I guess.
Yeah.
I think they figured like, oh, the parents will recognize his voice. But,
yeah, what we would consider someone like Weird Al Yankovic now, that was Stan Freberg then.
Yeah, he was huge. People loved his silly novelty songs and his variety show thing. Man, we need to bring back variety shows. I freaking love old variety shows, and we need something like that now. But yeah, so anyway, Stan Freberg is a legend. Go look him up. If you've never heard his music, go look him up. Still hilarious to this day. Possibly one of his funniest and most enduring skits is called Elderly Man River.
Yes.
If you've never heard it, go look it up. Mel Blanc is in that one, I think, isn't he?
Yeah.
No, it was a different one. Sorry, I'm thinking of another one. But yeah, go look up Elderly Man River. It's on YouTube. It's funny. So anyway, just brilliant. Sorry, we can't say enough about Stan Freberg, I don't think.
Yeah.
We're both huge fans.
Yeah, our friend Luke Ski did an entire skit, which is pretty much every Stan Freberg character in one recording studio.
Yeah, and it's that one's a brilliant bit too.
Yeah.
But yeah, he really did. If you go look up Stan Freberg, you kind of understand where a lot of comedy, especially comedy music, but just kind of comedy in general and animation people kind of got their senses of humor from.
Yeah.
'Cause he was a huge influence to a lot of people.
Anything else we can say about Stan Freberg?
Not really, although I have stuff to say about the narrator later, but we'll get into that later.
All right. So we've got, let's get into the Wuzzles themselves. Let's talk about Bumble Lion, half Bumblebee, half Lion, voiced by Brian Cummings.
Yeah, who I think we've talked about before, in passing, but, he was in, Gummy Bears.
Mm-hmm.
He was one of the voices of Sir Tuxford, not the original, but he took over, after the original actor, after the original actor died.
Which was Bill Scott.
No, Roger Carmichael.
Oh, okay.
Roger Carmel, excuse me. Right. Yeah, Gummy Bears had a kind of sad run there.
Yeah.
But he was in the Snorks. He was some voices in Garfield and Friends.
If you watched the cartoon Saturday morning in the 80s, you heard Brian Cummings every week.
Yeah, or 90s. Yeah, he had a big thing, and also video games. He's still doing video game voices. He's been in a lot of Metal Gear games, and he was in one of the Tron games, stuff like that. So, a good, solid voice actor. Not really any kind of huge parts, I guess, outside of this. He does a lot of kind of background voices and stuff.
All right. Anything else we can talk about Brian Cummings?
No, I think we're good on that one.
All
like
right.
I said, I think we've discussed him before in Gummy Bears a little bit.
All right, so let's move on. Butterbear, half butterfly, half bear, voiced by Kathleen Helpy Shipley. Is that how you pronounce it? I don't know. I'm butchering that.
Helpy Shipley, I think is
Helpy
that
Shipley.
One.
Okay.
I'm taking a guess at that. Apologies.
She doesn't even have a Wikipedia page, unfortunately. So
she does not. She went on to be more of a producer of animation. She really seems to have only had 2 big animation roles, Butterbear, and then a character called Sweets from a show called The Biscuits, which I have never heard of.
Neither have I.
Yeah, I do not know what this show is or when it aired. It looks sort of like a Gummy Bears ripoff, except with dogs. Just going from like the thing, but apparently Peter Cullen was in it, so good for them.
Peter Cullen was in a lot of things.
Yeah. But anyway, but then she seems to have gone on to a decent run of producing animation between the late 70s and 2000s. So good. I mean, good for her, but most of her work has been, off screen, I guess, rather than acting.
All right, I guess we can move on there. Ella Rue, half elephant, half kangaroo, voiced by Henry Gibson.
I love me some Henry Gibson. This is the first of our 2 Laugh-In alum that we will talk about. I guess whoever cast this show was a big fan of Laugh-In, as we all should be. Laugh-In was a good show, and
sock it to me?
Yeah, I'll sock it to you. But Henry Gibson, a lot of people know because he was a very distinctive character actor. You know him best as the voice of Wilbur in the animated Charlotte's Web.
Oh.
However, if you're not into animation, you probably know him best as the leader of the Illinois Nazis in the Blues Brothers.
Wow, really?
Yeah, really. But also from, from the early 60s all the way up until, like, when he died in 2009. I think he was working like right up until his death. He was a character actor on every TV show you've ever watched.
Like you say, he's that guy.
Yeah, he was very much that guy. Also in The Biscuits. I don't know what this show is, but apparently he was also in it.
If you know what The Biscuits is, please send us a message. Comment on this episode, please.
Yeah. But he was in so much stuff. I mean, looking at his thing, he was just animation. He was in like Duckman, Adventures of Billy and Mandy, Ah Real Monsters, Hey Arnold, King of the Hill even was one of his last roles. So, and that's just the animated stuff. If you've ever watched any TV show, he was even back on like Beverly Hillbillies, Dick Van Dyke Show, F Troop. If you watched a lot of Nick at Night growing up and you're our age, you would have seen him on those. Went through to like Murder, She Wrote, Sabrina the Teenage Witch, all the way up to like Boston Legal show, which I loved, which was one of his final live action performances, it seems. But yeah, he was just like a constant, really cool character actor who always made you smile when he showed up. I was always happy to see him on screen. So.
All right, let's just move on. Moosel, half moose, half seal, half moose, half seal. Trying to say that. Voiced by Bill Scott, who again passed away at the end of the first season.
Yeah, and we've talked about Bill Scott before, doing Gummy Bears. You best know him as Bullwinkle J. Moose.
Wait, he's voicing another moose.
Yep, he's voicing another moose. So, I mean, it's a nice job if you can get it. But yeah, we won't go back through his career again. We'll just leave it at that.
All right, let's move on. Hoppopotamus, half rabbit, half hippopotamus. Voiced by Joanne Worley.
Yeah, the other Laugh-In alum from this show. If you remember a really brash woman with that kind of, like, hi kids, how are we gonna do it? That's Joanne Morley.
Which kind of makes it perfect for playing Hoppo here.
Yeah, and she does a really good job as Hoppo, and honestly, this is typecasting for her. She played this kind of character in everything she ever did. She was a really big comedic actress. We have talked about her before because she is the voice of the wardrobe in Beauty and the Beast.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever we get around to a Goofy movie, we're going to talk about her again because she's Miss Maples in that one. But she was also another kind of character actor woman that's in everything. She's also guested on episodes of the original DuckTales and, all that kind of stuff too. But her biggest Disney appearances is absolutely the armoire in Beauty and the Beast, and she continued to do that voice even up through the Kingdom Hearts games.
Yeah, she actually did the voice for the Beauty and the Beast, as the wardrobe did it for the Beauty and the Beast story time at Walt Disney World.
Yeah, and still kicking around out there. We wish her the best of luck. She's in her 80s now. But
yeah, that's the thing about voicing an iconic Disney character. You have a job for life.
Yep, she does. So, good for her. Yeah.
All right, let's wrap up the good guy Wuzzles with Rhinoki, half rhinoceros, half monkey, voiced by Alan Oppenheimer, which I will always know as the voice of Skeletor. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, he did have he has had a pretty interesting career as well. As of this recording, still with us in his 90s. Good for him. He's played 3 different unrelated characters in 3 different Star Trek series. He was in Next Generation as a Klingon. He was the captain of the spaceship in the episode The Jim Hadar in Deep Space Nine. He's an alien ambassador in an episode of Voyager, but he does a lot of voice roles. Of course, Skeletor, Man-at-Arms, and Merman from He-Man.
He was a couple of Transformers too.
Yeah, Merlin in Prince Valiant, Barkerville in Pound Puppies. He's Beachcomber and Warpath in Transformer. He was one of the voices of Harold from Fallout. As you know, I'm a big Fallout fan. And Harold has showed up in 4 games, I think, in the Fallout series. Fun. But interestingly enough, one of his most recent voice acting gigs has been on an Adult Swim show. He guest starred on a show called Tigtone, which I don't watch, but is on Adult Swim now. So he's been working even up through 2019 at this point. So
good.
He also showed up in Toy Story 4 as Old Timer. So whenever we get around to the Toy Story movies, and 4 in specific, we'll probably be talking about him again.
Yeah. And I think that wraps up our heroic Wuzzles. Let's get to our main villains of the series. Crocosaur, half crocodile, half dinosaur. It's never specific what kind of dinosaur he is. He's just a dinosaur. I'm going to say T-Rex just based on the shape, but, it's never really given. Also voiced by Alan Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
We got Brat, half boar, half dragon. Kind of looks like Tasmanian devil, honestly.
Yeah, I did not get boar and dragon from this. I don't think they really specifically say in the episodes we watched what he is a crossover between, and I was just like, I have no idea what that thing is supposed to be.
Yeah. Also voiced by Bill Scott. And Flizzard, half frog, half lizard, also voiced by Brian Cummings.
Yeah.
And yeah, they're your typical Saturday morning 80s villains in that they're like really, really stupid compared to the heroes.
Yeah, they're really dumb. They seem to, they're just bullies.
Yeah.
And they're also like messy slobs.
And lazy as all hell.
Yeah, which is every 80s cartoon villain. 80s cartoon villains did not really have... They were either, like, evil overlords trying to take over the world, like your Skeletors, or they were just, I'm a dumb, messy bully who is just here to make your life miserable for no particular reason.
Other than the plot says so.
Yeah. Not a lot of not a lot of three-dimensional villains in 80s cartoons.
All right. Anything else we can talk about are the actors?
Not with the actors, but let's talk about theme song here for a second.
Go ahead.
Because, I love me a good theme song. This one is not particularly a great theme song, in my estimation. Like, I'm not going to be going around humming it. Some interesting turns of phrase, I guess. The living with a split personality and full of originality and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's not bad, but it's not going to stick with me.
It's your generic Saturday morning kids cartoon theme song.
Yeah. However... The guy who wrote it co-wrote at least one of the catchiest TV theme songs in all of history because, believe it or not, he also wrote this song. He wrote the theme song to The Greatest American Hero. At least half of it, and also the theme song to Blossom. I mean, it's things that if you're a kid, if you were a kid when we were a kid, you heard a couple of things that he did. Stephen Geyer also sings it. This is probably not his greatest composition, but it's a serviceable little ditty.
I can see one of those, like, it's a weekend. Hey, we need a theme song for a cartoon. Well, what's the cartoon's about? Well, it's a bunch of animals. There are actually two animals in one. Can you go with that? Yeah, give me a few hours. I'll get it. Here's the thing.
Yeah. It's no DuckTales woo-woo,
It's not even a Gummy Bears.
It's not even a Gummy Bears. Gummy Bears have a way more catchy theme song, but this one is, it's serviceable. But interesting little side note there in Disney history. So, yeah.
All right. Do you want to just get into the episodes then?
Yeah, we watched 3 this time.
And considering there's only 13, this is about a fourth of the series.
Yeah. So we watched the first 3 episodes that were released.
All right. So the first episode, the pilot episode, if you want to call it that, Bowls of a Feather.
Yeah, this is the one that was released alongside Bambi, wasn't it?
Yeah. So Elleru kind of accidentally adopts a baby Brahma bullfinch, which is a bull and a finch. Yeah. And kind of gets attached to it, kind of sees it as his son, despite kind of having girly eyelashes. Yeah, and he doesn't want to get part with it because he's kind of gone motherly. The bullfinch addresses it as Muma in the show, and but at the same time, Croc and his gang want the bullfinch because bullfinch feathers are worth a lot of money. So now it's the race to get the bullfinch back to its mama before the entire flock attacks the Wuzzles.
I was proud of this episode for making the villains want it for its feathers and not to eat it, which if you're like, here's a baby bird and a crocodile wants it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so this was quite possibly the first episode of the Wuzzles I have ever seen in my life. If I ever watched one, it was when I was too young to form memories around it.
And they really hammer it in as soon as it's implied that there has been previous adventures since the narrator says we are once again in the land of Wuz, despite this being the first episode.
Yeah, I think it just wanted kids to think like, hey, this is a pre-existing universe. Come along and join the fun. Okay, here's the part where everybody's gonna hate me. I immediately hated the narrator. Not necessarily Stan Freberg, who I love, but I do not like the way that this is written or used.
The narrator is very sarcastic and kind of makes the characters seem even dumber than they actually are.
Well, that would have been fine with me if there were any good jokes. I hate to say it, but I watched 3 episodes, and you know how many times I laughed?
None?
1.
Mm.
And it was kind of like a... That was the entirety of my laugh over 3 episodes of a animated comedy show. Interestingly, the one time I did laugh came from the narrator in this episode, where they've ended on your typical 80s cliffhanger of like, oh no, how are we going to get out of this mess? And then it comes back from commercial and the narrator says, where are we? Oh yeah, in trouble. And I went, like, and unfortunately that was the one laugh this show got from me. I respect the cast in this show, but it feels like the writers were asleep at the wheel. I really don't know, like, who was, in charge, if they had, like, a writer's room, or who put it together. Honestly, I don't know all that stuff, and I'm sure that they were good at their jobs in other ways, but something about this show just doesn't gel to me.
It feels like, coming back to this from being an adult watching this since being a kid, it feels like as an adult watching it, it's a very one-note show, with the joke being they're 2-in-1 and everything is 2-in-1. Like, not just the animals, but everything else. Like, oh, you want to have a piece of my banana bean or my whatever? Like,
yeah,
even the food is
like
2-in-1.
Pizza-getti.
Yeah,
in one
Pizza-getti.
episode, or, a burger dog or something. In one episode, there's apparently a telephonograph.
Yeah.
Castle
scrapers.
Yeah. In the 3rd episode, they ride roller skis instead of roller skates.
Yeah.
And honestly, yeah, I think if you're 5, that's a joke with some legs,
Yeah.
It's like, what are you going to call a rabbit and a hippopotamus? A hippopotamus.
Yeah,
it's that kind of joke that, like, a little kid tells you and they expect you to think it's the funniest thing in the world. And as an adult, you're like, wow, this is a really annoying child and I wish they would go back to wherever they came from.
It's the kind of jokes you would hear in kindergarten.
Yeah. And okay. But I think, I don't know. It just, I wonder if even a kid would get bored of this. I wonder if that's why it didn't last beyond the 1 season.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think even when you're 5, you want to latch on to something else.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not saying that, Gummy Bears is the easiest to compare it to. Because they were on at the same time, and they have and Butter Bear looks exactly like Sunny Bear.
Yeah.
With, like, butterfly stuff.
Even kind of sounds like her. They have very similar voice.
It was for a while I was like, until I looked it up, I was like, is that the same actress? But it's not. But Gummy Bears, even though I'm not saying that it's like a continuous story like something like Gargoyles, it did have a story.
The characters do evolve.
Well, and not even evolve, but like there's a story that is big enough to fill up 21 minutes. Mm-hmm. What these felt like to me, the Wuzzles episodes, was this is a Looney Tunes short that got like stretched into 21 minutes and doesn't know what to do with itself.
Mm-hmm. And you kind of go ahead.
Well, like the first episode is like, oh, wouldn't it be funny if one of the characters found a kid that wasn't his and then like thought it was his or something, but you don't even see the villains in this episode until halfway through. Mm-hmm. And boy, was it jarring when they showed up. Like the show is on one trajectory, which is, hey, Elleru, this is obviously not your baby because we've identified it as a Brahma bullfinch. You are an Elleru, so no, They figured out where it came from. Elleru ran into a tree and the egg fell out of a nest. Okay? They've decided that they have to return this baby to its mother. This is the story arc of the show so far for the first half of the episode. And then all of a sudden it backs out through a window and there's the villain there going like, oh, hey, I'm going to steal that baby. And then we are on a completely different trajectory for the episode. Yeah, this could have easily such a tonal shift.
This could have easily been half the length, like an 11-minute short, and it would have been a lot better paced.
Yeah, I think this concept could work, but I don't think it can work in the format that they tried to do it in.
Yeah.
At the time, now we have 15-minute shows, 11-minute shorts, or whatever,
11-minute shows, like a full episode of Steven Universe is 11 minutes.
Yeah, and kids are fine with that. I still find it a little weird because, we grew up with every show is 30 minutes or an hour. That's it. You don't get anything else. And now we're getting like, well, but some of them are 15 minutes and some of them are,
If you can tell the story in that time frame, go for it, I guess.
Yeah, and honestly, the internet is changing that.
Yeah.
Because now some of the shows I watch don't even have a set length. One episode will be 30 minutes, one episode will be 45 minutes, one episode will be 28 minutes. It doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. Because you're not filling a network time slot anymore. Mm-hmm. So honestly, if this thing was an internet cartoon that took however long it needed to tell that particular joke, it might be better. I honestly think it would be better without the narrator. Either take the narrator away or make the narrator more over the top. Because honestly, and again, I love Stan Freberg so much, and it pains me to say anything bad about this character, but it's really not Stan Freberg's fault. It sounds like your dad sitting on the couch making snarky comments because he thinks the show you're watching is dumb.
And that probably could just be, for the parents, maybe.
But the stuff he said isn't funny to an adult. It just sounds like an annoyed adult being forced to watch this show. It's like, and now what's Bumblelion doing? That doesn't seem very smart now, does it? It's like, at one point, let's just skip ahead a little bit. The third episode, I think, of the series.
In the money.
In the money, yeah. Bumbleian finds a bunch of money that is not his, and now he is rich. And at one point, the narrator says, like, well, Bumbleian is wrong. His friends haven't changed because he's rich. He's really changed because he's rich. And I thought, literally 4 characters have said that in the context of the show. Even a 5-year-old doesn't need the narrator to come in and repeat that again.
Mm-hmm.
Like, kids are not as dumb as they thought we were in the 80s, apparently.
And I can get, even coming back to this episode, the attempt at a joke, they're going to find out that a bullfinch does this. And then a bullfinch does this. And I get that was kind of supposed to be a joke.
Yeah, but it just makes you think that they think that the audience is dumb. Which, even as a kid, there was nothing more annoying to me as a child than someone thinking I was dumb because I was a child.
Mm-hmm.
There's a difference between, like, hey kids, do you know what this is? Well, in case you don't, here's what it means. And, hey kids, I know you're too stupid to understand what this is, so I'm going to explain it to you in a really condescending tone.
Yeah, the narrator is very condescending in these episodes.
Yeah, and
like
I
think, like Stan Freberg didn't want to be here.
And I would not have blamed him. Honestly, if I'd have read these scripts, I would have been like, wow, I guess I really need the money. That's the thing that confuses me about this show. Like I said, I think I can understand why a little kid might like it for a few episodes. But I do not understand how an adult at a network would look at this and go like, yes, that's a thing I feel comfortable putting out to the world.
It could be one of those things of kids are dumb, they'll watch anything.
Yeah, which I think was really the corporate mood in the 80s.
Yeah.
I think by the 90s, and I'm not really sure what happened, but in the 90s, and I would say the mid-90s, you start getting creators for some of these cartoons that are willing to give kids a chance. And it started with older kids. It started with your, like, Batman the Animated Series and Gargoyles and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But it even trickled down into, by the time something like, we've talked about it before, how big of a fan of Blue's Clues I am.
Mm-hmm.
Blue's Clues is an educational show aimed at preschoolers, the same age that I'm sure this show was aimed at. And it never once talks down to the kids. It explains a lot of things to them, but it never did it in a condescending way.
That reminds me of the same that Mr. Rogers would do in his old show. He would explain things to kids, but he would never talk down to them because the kids deserve that kind of respect.
Yeah, and the same with Sesame Street. And honestly, I think if anything did change the kind of zeitgeist in children's television, it was probably Fred Rogers and Jim Henson and the people over at Sesame Workshop, Children's Workshop. So I think that, unfortunately, we're gonna run into this more as we look back at some of this stuff.
Yeah.
That we may have the somewhat unfortunate realization that you did, that this is maybe not holding up as a kid. I mean, what about it really hit you when you were watching it?
I think it was more of I think it's just coming back to these stories, these episodes, and realizing, yeah, this is not good. This is not necessarily not good, but it's like I'm the wrong age to appreciate this show. Like, there's the way it's written, it's very simplistic stories, yes, and that's fine. And each episode is trying to teach a lesson in some kind of way. but it's like it's teaching it in a way that is, like you said, very condescending to children that me as a kid didn't get, maybe.
Well, of all these three, that we watched, we watched this one about finding the little animal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The second one is called Hooray for Hollywood, and it's about Hippopotamus going to Hollywood basically to try to become a big famous actress. And then we watched the third episode, what's that one called again?
In the Money.
In the Money, which is Bumbleian finds money and acts like a rich jerk now that he has money. Of those three, only one of them, would I say, had a clear moral to teach children. If you're stretching it, I think the first episode might have the moral of leave nature where you found it.
At least in Hooray for Hollywood, it's more of a be honest thing, because a lot of it is Hoppo lying to her friends that she's a big star when she's not.
Okay, let's just go ahead and get into it right now. I expected to like that episode the most because, I like entertainment. I like Hollywood stuff. I like things set in LA around the entertainment business, okay? I expected to love that one. I hated it. Of all the 3 episodes, that's the one that I would like to die in a fire. I'm sorry. Because it is 21 minutes of, isn't it hilarious that Hippopotamus is fat?
Yeah, I wanted to get around to that. That is every episode. The joke is, Hoppo is fat. Isn't that funny? She thinks she's beautiful. She thinks she's loving. She's in love with Bumbleian, and she thinks she's going to be this big star and big and beautiful. And, well, let's all laugh her. And a lot of it comes from Rhinoki.
Okay, I want... You know what? I'm just going to say it. I want Rhinoki dead. Like, 2.5 minutes into the first episode, I was like, I don't know what that character is, but I want it dead. And it only got worse from there. Rhinoki is the worst.
As I watch these episodes, I'm noticing that they're trying to be the Muppets. And considering Muppet Babies came out the year prior, I mean, Hoppo is pretty much acting like Miss Piggy. Rhinoki is acting like Fozzie. And really, really bad versions of those characters.
Yeah, extraordinarily bad versions of those characters. The interesting thing is I don't mind Hoppo as a character. I mean, she's a typical Joanne Worley character, and I like Joanne Worley, so I've got nothing wrong with the character or how it's portrayed necessarily by the actor and the writing, but the way all the other characters react to her is really awful.
Yeah, it's one of those things that you can look as an adult looking on this. It's that how was she friends with these people when they're so mean to her?
Yeah, and she is the butt of like every joke. Like they all make fun of her. And like the weird thing, you talked about her having like a crush on Bumbleian. Mm-hmm. But Bumbleian likes Butterbear.
Mm-hmm. Love triangle.
Which is fine. Okay, it's okay to teach kids, like, hey, some love is unrequited and it sucks, but whatever. Great lesson to teach kids. I wish more shows would do that. Like, it's okay. Things don't work out sometimes. But the problem is that Butterbear, I'm assuming she's supposed to be whatever their version of adult is. But she seems like she acts the same age as Moosel, who is kind of constantly portrayed as maybe a kid, like the little brother of the group.
Yeah, he's like everything's a monster to him.
Yeah, and Bumbleian is like a gruff voice, kind of older guy. Like he sounds like an adult man.
Mm-hmm.
And Butterbear talks like this, and she sounds very, 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 very childlike. And it's like, creepy. Yeah. Whereas Hoppopotamus is very obviously an adult woman. You would never mistake that character for supposed to be a child. She seems on par with the same age as Bumbleian by the way they voice and characterize the creatures. Okay? Mm-hmm. And even though, like, in the second episode, we see Butterbear directing a play that Hoppo is in. For
Cinder Wuzzle.
Yeah, Cinder Wuzzle, which is like...
And they actually use...
It seems like a community theater thing.
Yeah, and they actually use a song from Cinderella.
Yeah, it's great. Disney.
Disney's using taking advantage of those song rights.
But it never feels like Butterbear is the same age as the rest of them. Like, to me, it feels like Butterbear and Moosel are kind of around the same age. They're the little brother and sister of the group. And I don't think that's what they were supposed to be. At least Butterbear. I think Moosel was.
I think it's just based on Butterbear's very, very childlike voice.
But also, she seems very kind of naive and trusting, and I don't know. She has a lot of very childlike qualities. In the way that, I don't know. Can like a little kid also be the mom friend? Because she gives off like a real mom friend vibe.
Well, she in the third episode, she actually bakes a cake for Hoppo.
Yeah, and I don't know. With animated characters, sometimes it's really hard to tell, especially when they're also anthropomorphic animals.
I think with Butterbear is that she's whatever the plot needs her to be in that particular episode.
Yeah, she definitely has the least, at least in the 3 episodes we saw. Okay, I haven't seen the rest of the series. Understand that I am judging on what I saw. But in these 3 episodes, she definitely has the least fleshed out character, I guess. I feel like I know who Bumbleian is as a character, or Ellaroo, or Moosel even, but I don't know, Butterbear just feels like she's like
generic.
I hate to say it, but she's the girl.
Yeah, she's the girl.
She's the 80s girl. It's like, oh, well, we've got a bunch of characters. Oh, crap, we forgot to put in a girl. Put her in. Well, what's her character like? She's the girl. She's a girl. Girl is her character. It's like, and you got that with a lot of kind of marginalized groups in the 80s. Like, put that character in. What are they? They're the black character. Yeah, but what do they do? They're the black character, Yeah. And, unfortunately, the girl character was kind of like that, and Butterbear comes off like that. Hoppo, while also female, is at least has a character.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That whole long answer for that whole thing kind of weirded me out. Yeah, that's
even in the episode. Even in the intro, if you want to watch the intro, Croc tries to lift up Hoppo, and then she falls right on top of him.
Yeah, it's I don't know.
That has not aged. Let's just say it has not aged.
Yeah, but there is and you said Miss Piggy, and honestly, Miss Piggy started out as that joke, and fortunately, the Muppets, first under Henson, and then later when Disney got a hold of it, I'd say Disney has done a slightly less great job than, the Henson gang did with it. But Miss Piggy evolved as a character.
Yeah, Piggy is no longer the fat joke among the Muppets. She is more like the bossy one, which is a better character trait, but at least it's not that offensive. But, she's still not a perfect character.
Well, yeah, but most of the Muppets aren't perfect characters.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they all have their little foibles. And, Piggy originally was a very kind of, she was an abusive fat joke. And you look back at some of those older sketches with her, and they do not age well.
Mm-mm.
But by the time you got around to, say, the Muppet movie even,
mm-hmm.
they really fleshed out that character of, like, where did she come from? Why is she like this? And she's a little less abusive and a little more like, she's got an angry side, and,
It's more of, I'm the star.
But yeah, which is a more forgivable trait, I think, than just randomly violent rage monster,
Yeah.
She also becomes a little less sexual harassy, too.
Yeah.
But, at least Hoppo doesn't really have that against her. She does have a crush on Bumbleion, and she doesn't really make it unknown, I mean, she's obvious that she has some affection for him, but the worst she ever does, at least in these 3 episodes, is kiss him on the cheek at a party.
Yeah.
Which is, very mild. She's not Pepe Le Pew. She doesn't chase him around.
She does have a fantasy of having a rich life with Bumbleion in the 3rd episode.
Yeah, but it's a fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't, like, go up to him and grab him and be like, and now I'm going to be your girlfriend because you're rich and I have this she has a fantasy on her own.
Mm-hmm.
Which is fine. It's fine. It's in your head. That's okay. But I don't know. It's just, I think Hoppopotamus as a character, Hoppopotamus and Elleru and Moosel, I really think are really interesting characters. I think there was a lot there you could do with them.
Mm-hmm.
Butterbear kind of goes back and forth. I can't decide whether I like him as a character or not. It kind of depends on the scene.
Mm-hmm.
Very inconsistently written, I think. I mean, not Butterbear. Bumbleion. Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
Bumbleion is very inconsistently written to me. I can't decide whether I like him or not. Butterbear is the girl. I mean, it's just she's kind of a nothing to me.
Yeah, she doesn't really have a personality.
Yeah, and Rhinoki, I don't know if I've mentioned this, but I want dead. Everything about that character is awful.
He also seems to be the only character that has a job.
Yeah, he's like a taxi driver or something.
He's a cab driver. Doesn't make any excuses, but yes, but he does these very mean-spirited jokes.
Also, just okay, the joke with Fozzie Bear, since we're gonna make that comparison, is that Fozzie tells bad jokes. Everybody knows they're bad, but they do kind of humor him and tell him to try again because he's a lovable guy.
Yeah,
he's a lovable guy that's a little bit Dunning-Kruger when it comes to his ability to craft a joke.
Mm-hmm.
Rhinoki is not that character. He is a prankster who likes you to be the butt of the joke. I'm not big on practical jokes and pranks.
He also tends to laugh at his own jokes.
He laughs at his own jokes, which Fozzie does a little bit, but you can tell it's kind of part of his shtick.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Ah!
he doesn't have the little, rim shot of like in the background. So he does the to kind of be like, and that's the joke. I am pausing for laughs, which a lot of comedians do, especially the type of, Catskillsy kind of, vaudeville comedians he was based on. But Rhinoki is only the only one ever laughing. But the other characters never really react to his jokes. They don't show the other characters reacting to his jokes unless it's a practical joke, and then they show like, oh, great, now you've covered me in whipped cream or whatever.
I think that's kind of part of it too, that he's the only one that finds himself funny, and everyone else is like, yeah, you're not funny, dude.
But do we know that? Because I didn't get that from the show. The show seems to want us to think he is hilarious. Because the show will stop everything. Focus on Rhinoki in a close-up. Rhinoki will tell the worst joke. And then it'll do like a little, doo-dum, like, hey kids, wasn't that funny? Except no, it's never funny. And honestly, even as a kindergartner, I had better jokes than that.
Yeah.
And the thing is, we never really see the other characters reacting. So the joke isn't that he's a bad comedian, I don't think. To an adult, he's a bad comedian. But the show seems to want the kids to think he's hilarious.
Even in The Money, when Bumblelion needs to find money, because he's broke. Bumblelion actually has a job. I can go to him. Oh, he always has the funny and the money.
Yeah, so why is he saying, he was like, he has the funny and the money, and I'm like, well, I hope he has the money, because he's never been funny. I don't know. I think they were trying to make a jokester character.
I guess the Disney Saturday morning safe for kids version of an insult comic. It was the 80s.
Yeah, maybe, but I don't know. It just, it hit wrong for me. And, you can say, and it's a fair cop, that I'm saying this because I'm an adult and these are jokes aimed at kids. But in general, I'm fairly good with figuring out, like, kids are going to find this hilarious. And a lot of times, even, like, kids will find this hilarious, and so do I, because I am apparently still 8 mentally sometimes. Mm-hmm. I laughed myself silly. What was it, 2 days ago or whatever? They just aired another, as we're recording this, about 2 days ago, they aired another Disney stay-at-home sing-along thing.
Yeah.
And Josh Gad was on it doing Olaf. Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, and Josh Gad was wearing a baseball cap that said, Samantha? And I laughed myself to tears.
I don't know a Samantha.
Just Josh Gad in a baseball cap that said Samantha? ? Because that joke to me was hilarious. And when I saw it in theater with, my father and I were the oldest people in there that were not there as like a parent of a tiny child. I laughed so hard at that joke, along with all the other tiny children. The adults really didn't laugh. I thought it was funny. And even afterwards, my dad's like, why was that funny? Like, the kids lost their mind at that. And I was like, because it's hilarious. Like,
it was a random name.
Yeah, the Samantha joke kills me. And so it's not that I can't love a dumb and childish joke, but this was not it. It's like, oh my goodness. Oh, this one. I'm gonna say that this was probably the hardest show we've watched for me to get through.
Sorry, Kyle.
Yeah, and I'm going to
this was a
apologize
request.
to Kyle. This was Kyle's request. Kyle Carosa, our friend, who came in and talked to us about a show I did love. I absolutely love Schnookums and Meat. Yeah, it's one of my favorite things now. But, I will say, in watching this, and I noticed a couple of things that make me wonder if this was not a bit of an inspiration for our dear Mr. TV's Kyle. Because there is a burger joint in here. Did you notice that? Did you notice that, Tuesday?
What?
That there is a burger joint in here called the Wuzzles Burger. The design of which looks a lot like a certain slug-based burger chain.
Yeah.
From the land of riboflavin. I'm kind of wondering if some of the design from that for Slugburger in Mighty Magizords didn't come from that. I don't have confirmation. This is my little fan theory here. But when I saw that, I was like, oh good, we're going to Slugburger. Because unlike, there are a lot of like fast food restaurants that get made up for cartoons. Mm-hmm. That's not a new thing. I mean, we've already talked about the, Bueno Taco or whatever from Kim Possible and everything.
Bueno Nacho,
yeah. But the design, the actual like physical design of some of these things, I was like, this feels very Slugburger-y, which I respect, The thing is I think that the concept is far more interesting than, unfortunately, these episodes really did it. Yeah. I think this is one that they could bring back and do a new modern take on it.
I could see this, at least if it was me, if I was in charge of making a reboot of the Wuzzles, I would sort of do it the way they did the reboot of the Mupp Babies, is make it for preschoolers, have a lesson in each episode.
Yeah, this I think is a really great for preschoolers idea. I think it should be shorter.
11 minutes, maybe even 5.
Yeah. I think it should be like an 11-minute show. I think either the narrator has to be super wacky or non-existent. Mm-hmm. It's one or the other. And I honestly would just dispense with the narrator. I do not think it's necessary. I would give Butterbear more of a character. And I would tone down Rhinoki so much. Mm-hmm. If you're going to go with he's the jokester thing, go one of two ways with it. Actually give him funny jokes. Or just make everybody else react to like, oh, Rhinoki, why do you, it's such a bad joke, But
like he'll say something and everyone goes, Rhinoki, what?
Yeah. It's, you either have to say, we know this is a bad joke, or you have to legitimately try to give him good jokes. Don't try to give him like purposefully corny jokes. I don't think that works as well as a lot of writers think it does. A lot of TV writers want to be like, oh, they're the character that tells the corny kind of dad joke thing. I'm here to tell you that doesn't really play the way you think it's gonna.
Yeah.
Like, ever. I can't remember the last time I saw that character work. They either have to take heat for it for being awful, like they have to be there to get other characters to boo and say that's a bad joke, mm-hmm. or they have to legitimately get a laugh out of you.
Yeah.
Anything in between is just going to fall flat and kind of make your audience mad at you.
But I will say that for an 80s cartoon, it's very well animated. And that's
really
the
animation is really awesome.
Again, it is on the same level as Gummy Bears. Again,
Yeah.
which is what's for a cartoon in 1985. This is pretty good.
Yeah, and I'm going to say that this is another bit of lost media. We had to go to YouTube for this one. This is one that's only been preserved thanks to fans, unfortunately. Disney, come on, get on that.
And these were all...
You're the largest corporation in the world with more money than, like, some planets, okay? Just digitize this and put it up on Disney Plus, please.
Yeah, a lot of these were taken from, according to the bug on the screen, recordings from Toon Disney.
Yeah. So, I would like to see a cleaner copy of this, but even though I think that they even though I think that the writing kind of failed this show, I think that the animation was awesome. Some of the character designs are very inventive.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the jokes of this and that mixed together are interesting. I really want to know what pizzaghetti is. Like, I want to know what goes into that. Is it like spaghetti, but it's on a pizza? Is it spaghetti, but there's like pizza sauce and pepperoni and stuff in it? I don't know. Okay.
Maybe it's...
But I want to.
Yeah. Maybe it's like the pizza bread, and then there's the tomato sauce, and you put spaghetti and meatballs on it.
Yeah. What was one of the other ones he ordered? Like mashed potato pie.
Yeah.
I'm very interested in that. Some of that stuff has a lot of, and even, interesting things like what two animals are we going to mash up? In the first episode, they're dealing with flants, which are flies and ants.
Yes.
Mixed together that are ruining their picnic. That is a great joke to me. I mean, seriously, that's an interesting idea.
Because those are two things you do see at a picnic: flies and ants.
And can you imagine if they teamed up and the ants can fly now and they buzz, and that would be a nightmare. Like, okay, I get it. That's a good combo.
And apparently these have stingers, because one of them did sting Bumblebee.
Yeah, that was the one where I was like, wait, neither ants nor flies have stingers. I mean, you can have
he's a bumblebee. He's part bumblebee. How is that affecting him?
Yeah, but there's a lot of interest here. I just feel like by doing we're making this for little kids, it doesn't really matter. I think that's the way the writers approached it, and I wish they hadn't, because some of this stuff is rather interesting. Although some of it did not work quite like they think, because I don't think they thought about, like, homophones. Because I was really confused for a second in the second episode where they're doing Cinder Wuzzle, and Hoppo, as the fairy godmother, says to Cinder Wuzzle, you gotta get back before midnight or that coach is gonna turn back into a pumpkinado, and you don't want that. And I was like, it's gonna turn into a pumpkin tornado? And I was thinking of, like, it's like Sharknado.
Yeah.
Because of the way she said it. And then I was like, wait, tomatoes are a thing. Tomatoes are a fruit, and pumpkin are a fruit, and that's probably what they meant, not a tornado made out of pumpkins. But for a second, I had the most hilarious mental image of, like, Cinder Wuzzle riding home in a coach, and then all of a sudden it just turns into a whirlwind of pumpkins.
The one that I laughed at is the Hollywood studio being Parafox.
Yeah, Parafox was good.
Paramount and Fox.
Yeah, Paramount and Fox.
Unfortunately, Paramount didn't buy Fox.
Yeah, we kind of wish they had. But.
And the leader being, and the head of it being a parrot fox.
Yeah. I did kind of have a bit of a smile at Steven Sealbird.
Yeah.
when they were doing that. That's a good joke. But I don't know. I think this would be an interesting concept to try to bring back. I think if you gave more interesting villains. Interestingly, we only saw the villains in one of these 3 episodes.
Yeah.
They apparently do recur more. I think if you give the villains a little bit more interesting character and they're not just like generic 2D bullies, like use them to show something a little more in depth, like teach kids about anger or something. I think this would
for actions.
Yeah, I think this would work very well, like you said, as kind of like a preschool, maybe kindergarten, first grade educational shorts show.
Like I said, it's working for Muppet Babies. The new,
yes.
I mean, a lot of people want the old Muppet Babies back, but the new Muppet Babies, it works as a preschool show.
But the old Muppet, I haven't really watched the new Muppet Babies, so I can't speak specifically to that. I haven't, it's on the long list of things I have to watch.
Well, you have seen a little bit of the new Blue's Clues, though.
I have seen a little bit of that, yeah.
So it's kind of the same thing of entertainment for preschoolers.
Yeah, but even the old Muppet Babies was sort of educational, but it was focused on teaching children to be creative and use their imagination. It wasn't necessarily like, hey kids, today we're going to learn about types of trees. Like, it wasn't that kind of educational, but it was more like, let's deal with emotions, let's deal with creativity, let's deal with imagination. Let's exercise those skills.
I've seen one episode of the new Muppet Babies, and it was teaching kids about jealousy and how Fozzie was jealous of Kermit.
And that sounds great. I want kids shows to get into more emotional and social, like social interaction kind of lessons. I think some shows have been really good about that. I think Steven Universe was really good about that. Something like Adventure Time got into that a little bit. Some of the education shows, I was just watching a retrospective on YouTube of Gullah Gullah Island. And that was the entire point of Gullah Gullah Island. It was, let's teach respect for other people. Let's talk about how to live in a community. Let's talk about empathy and emotions and when it's good to feel emotions, when you have to control emotions. And it was very unlike the other educational kids shows. And I want to see more of that. And honestly, I really do think that these characters could be retooled into that kind of thing, because it does seem like they sort of wanted to go that way. It does seem like they wanted to teach lessons, but that they never really committed to it.
Yeah, it was more like let's see what random 2 animal thing we can get in there and get the doll out in the stores.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm not against turning things into cute toys, because I want cute toys even at my age. But however, I think this show has to be, at least on the surface, has to pretend like it's got some other reason to exist other than sell this toy.
Yeah.
That worked in the 80s with Reagan and baby boomer parents, I guess. But with millennial parents in whatever weird sideways universe we're living in now, it needs to be more than just consumption, I think.
The shows need to have more than just look at this funny thing.
Because, even something like Pokemon, which I don't know that much about,
Mm-hmm.
but even something like Pokemon was kind of created to be a, hey, you got to get out there and collect all the toys,
Go play
get all the cards, get all the video games,
yeah.
But eventually they kind of realized, like, oh, that's not really enough to sustain an entire franchise.
Mm-hmm.
So then you started getting things like, well, what do these characters feel like? What are the motivations here? What are the, and some of those, at least what I've read, seem like interesting storylines and tangents.
Mm-hmm. Even though the storylines reset every time a new game comes out, but the show has to continue some kind of way.
Yeah, but it does seem like eventually the people behind it were like, oh, we've got to do something else with this other than just scream at kids to buy a thing.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that... I hope that we're never going to see TV shows quite like the ones we had as kids again. I like Transformers. I do.
Mm-hmm.
I like, Care Bears. I like some of these other things. And honestly, most of those, He-Man and stuff, they were created just to sell a toy.
Mm-hmm.
But somewhere along the line, somebody realized that's not enough.
Mm-hmm.
And,
even He-Man had its lesson of the day in each episode.
Yeah, and G.I. Joe, same thing. At the end you do that. But look at what we've done now that the kids that grew up with that are, running the asylum, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the new She-Ra.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. That is... I cannot give them enough credit for what they've done with that property. Look at the new My Little Pony.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me with what My Little Pony has done? It started out as, let's come up with a new pony so kids will go out and buy the toys. And now it's like, hey kids, here's a show about how you should be nice to other people. And friendship is the greatest thing in the world.
Yeah,
and
how to be a better
is
friend.
Awesome. And,
Pretty much. Each episode is teaching kids how to be better friends.
And the side bit is, I absolutely have a Twilight Sparkle sitting next to me, and I have at least 2 cheese sandwich figures because Weird Al is awesome.
I figured you would have Dr. Hooves.
I do not have Dr. Hooves yet, and I desperately need it. But yeah, here's the thing is, I don't even really watch Friendship is Magic. I've seen some episodes. I'm not saying I won't watch it or have anything against it, but I'm not like a huge fan. I've still purchased those toys because here's the thing. I really respect what they're trying to do with the show now. And that's going to make me go out and buy merchandise a lot more than, hey, cute thing. Don't you want cute thing? So... I don't know. I think now that people our age are in more, I'm not even going to say all because millennials have been stunted in so many ways. Mm-hmm. But now that, some people our age are now creating these shows, I think we're trying to get through things we really wish we had been taught as children.
Yeah. The shows we wish we had.
Yeah, the shows we wish we had. Which is a really wonderful thing, and I'm glad I lived to see it.
This is one of the good things about certain reboots, like the 2012 Ninja Turtles reboot, or the current DuckTales reboot.
I love me some current DuckTales, man. That's a good show.
Taking the best parts of the entire history of those characters, taking the best parts, and now you're also putting in great storytelling. And giving us something great. Speaking of the new DuckTales, you mentioned something before we went on the air here.
Oh, yeah. So, 2 of the characters from this series are set to come back in season 3 of the current DuckTales series, which honestly should be airing any time now. I think season 3 has already started, but
it started, I think, I want to say back in beginning of,
Yeah.
want to say end of March, beginning of April.
Yeah, Tuesday and I are both still in the middle of season 2 in our watching. So we have not seen.
I don't have cable, so I'm pretty much whatever's on Disney Plus at this point.
Yeah, and so I'm just really woefully behind. I don't even have that excuse. But they might have already aired even as we're recording this. But 2 of the Wuzzles are set to appear in this new thing, which are Butterbear and Rhinoki. However, I will read you what Wikipedia has currently said about this. Butterbear and Rhinoki will appear in a future episode of DuckTales. Unlike their original TV appearances, Butterbear and Rhinoki's designs are more realistic and animalistic. At this point, dear listener, I would like you to pause this recording. I would like you to go to Google and type in DuckTales Butterbear and DuckTales Rhinoki and look at the pictures that are up of their new, more realistic and animalistic designs. We will wait. Okay, wasn't that nightmare fuel? Was that not the weirdest nightmare fuel you have ever seen?
Yeah, that's...
Butterbear is just a giant brown bear with butterfly wings snapped on the back of it and a giant long proboscis tongue.
At least they kept Rhinoki's color scheme.
Yeah, Rhinoki is a pink and yellow, and it does kind of look like a great ape, like a King Kong, but with a rhino horn.
Like, this one was more like this 80s version was more of a generic monkey. This is more like a gorilla in the new DuckTales.
Yeah, it's very gorilla shaped, with a rhino tail and a rhino horn. Butterbear is just a nightmare. I don't know how we get from like sweet little adorable, I'm baking a cake for Hoppo, to the nightmare. Because even in the one picture that we were able to find, it's like growling and extending its proboscis tongue in like a Gene Simmons kind of way. I don't know. Oh my goodness.
Are they going to the island of Dr. Moreau in this episode? I don't know.
Yes, this very much looks more like an Island of Dr. Moreau interpretation of 2 animals mixed together rather than a Wuzzles interpretation.
Well, DuckTales have pretty much referenced every classic Disney afternoon cartoon so far. They've referenced Gummy Bears, obviously DuckTales, Darkwing Duck, Rescue Rangers, and soon-to-be Tailspin. So why not go backwards and do the Wuzzles?
Yeah, okay. I'll be interested to see what they do with it, but I'm also a little terrified that these are the things that will be haunting my nightmares.
And watch those 2 get action figures.
Yeah, please.
Or at least tiny little figurines you can buy at the Disney store whenever they reopen.
Yeah, maybe. However, okay, so let's wrap this up.
The Wuzzles, magic. No.
Yeah, we're sorry. And honestly, I really did try. I went
sorry,
into
Kyle.
this. Yeah, we're sorry, Kyle, because we really did go into this. At least I did, going like, wow, I really love Schnookums and Meat. Maybe there's something to the Wuzzles. And I think there would have been something to the Wuzzles. Maybe if I'd have watched it as a kid, I'd have some pleasant memories. Even though I think you're agreeing with me that it doesn't have the magic, I think you have a bit more mellow view of it than I do.
Again, my love of the Wuzzles comes from I'm going to admit this is a purely nostalgia-based love. And that was kind of the point of this show. Do these things that we grew up with, are they good because they're good, or do we love them because that was what we had as kids? And to me, the Wuzzles, like, this is what I had as a kid. This is pure nostalgia. It really doesn't hold up as well as a lot of the other Disney afternoon shows does.
But I will absolutely like stand on a soapbox and say, please retool this. There's
Yes.
some kernel of awesome that is buried in there that this show never seemed to have really capitalized on.
Yeah.
And I think it would go very well to, reboot this and do exactly what we've just been saying. This would be an adorable show for kids if you gave it a little more plot and retooled some of the characters to take away the grating and somewhat problematic bits of them.
Yeah, that's one way to modernize this show. A little TLC in these characters, little smoothing out of the character models, modern animation. There's something here that could be great. It just needs the right person to be in charge to actually care about these characters and care about the story.
Yeah, and I would honestly say that I would love to see a character sort of based on Pete Puma.
Yeah.
Just added to the cast as a nod to Stan Freberg.
What would you combine him with? What kind of character what kind of other animal would you merge a Pete Puma with? A coyote, because I believe he did voice one of Wile E. Coyote's relatives, maybe?
Well, he did do a bear in Looney Tunes as well, and he also was one of the voices of Beaky Buzzard.
Mm-hmm.
So you could have like a
Puma Buzzard? Pumazard,
Yeah,
all right.
Pumazard. That sounds like an awesome, yeah. So remake it, Pumazard. Send us a couple of bucks for the idea. We'll sign it over happily.
So, what kind of Wuzzle will you be? We know you're a ferret, and you like dogs. Fuzzog?
No, I think I would be a combination of a ferret and a dolphin.
Dolphin?
Yeah, I don't, a Dulrit, maybe? A Dolfer?
Okay, we can make that happen, I guess.
Fairfin? I don't know.
Artists out there, let's try this. A dolphin with a ferret head.
No, like a ferret with like a back fin and maybe like a blowhole or something. I don't know. It's just a water-loving ferret. Which ferrets already love water.
For those of you who are new to the show, Kiki may sound like a human, but she is actually a ferret.
Yeah. So, whatever. I don't know. I felt kind of sad watching the Wuzzles. Because, like I said, I think it could have been much better than it got the chance to be.
Yeah.
Maybe if they'd have continued into a season, they would have, evolved the characters and figured out what worked and what didn't, and, I don't know. But, I definitely think it's time to bring them back.
Yeah, I do like that it's more of for 1980s modern city, compared to what the Gummy Bears were doing in the old-timey castles.
Yeah, I do like that. I do like keeping the Wuzzles modern, but, just on their own island.
Sort of like how they do with the new DuckTales. We've modernized the technology.
Yeah.
But then you get Bumble Lion with a cell phone.
I would love to see, some weird mashups of modern technology. I don't know what those would be. This is why they pay me the no bucks. But
we technically have a lot of that because we already have most video game consoles that can play Blu-ray movies. So
yeah, but we don't really call it game ray or something. We don't really name it weird things. So.
Rhinoki streaming on YouTube.
Oh wow. Yeah.
No. This is Wuzzle, so it'd be TwitTube.
Yeah. TwitTube. TwitTube would be funny. But yeah, I don't know. It's just, there feels like so much wasted potential here, and it just kind of makes me sad.
There is a lot of potential in this show. There's a lot of potential for these characters. It just needs the right person to care about these characters, reboot it. Like I said, I think the perfect opportunity for this would be more of a preschool show. Have it teach a kid life lessons, and go from there. If you want to make it more of a action-y show, because I don't think that would work, maybe you can get the team from DuckTales to do it. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think this would work as an action-y show. I really don't. It has to be like a slice of life kind of thing.
Which would be perfect involving, a preschool audience, because that way you can still teach your life lessons and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else we can talk about the Wuzzles?
Rhinoki must die. Just at least the version that already.
Hashtag Rhinoki must die.
Hashtag Rhinoki must die.
Wait, are you gonna put that in the description when this goes online?
Maybe. I don't know. We'll decide. But yeah, this and Mortimer Mouse, like Rhinoki and Mortimer Mouse. I just want to put them both in a catapult right into the sun.
They're on your enemies list.
Yeah, I just do not want.
So if anyone wants to make fan art, have a Disney-like ferret just beating up Mortimer Mouse and Rhinoki.
I would actually love that.
Artists, so they can probably make that happen.
If I die, my grave needs two things. Have you ever wanted to punch a mouse? And Rhinoki must die.
Alright, so that's all we can say about the Wuzzles. So it's time to move on to next week. Kiki, it's time to start the final mission. Our favorite agents are getting together one last time. Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the final season. By the time next week's episode goes out, the final season would be starting. So to commemorate the final season of Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., we are going back to the beginning. We are going to go back and review the pilot episode, the first 2 episodes of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. to see where our agents started and where our agents ended up. So
yeah. Warning, we will probably get into spoilers for all 6 of the previously aired seasons, so just know that's our plan. And we will see you for that. I'm really looking forward to that. Also fair warning, it will contain more Coulson love.
Yes, more Clark Gregg love.
But at least it'll be on topic this time.
Yes.
So join us for our 8-hour rant on how much I love Coulson next week.
We're going to get Jessica Gray here. She's going to beat you up. Baby's going to put you in the corner.
You know what? If she introduces me to her father, I would absolutely love to meet Jennifer Grey. Her father is amazing, and I love him.
All right, so that's all we can talk about this week. We will be back next week where we'll be talking Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Bye!
Bye!
Thank you for listening to Rewatching the Magic. We invite you to keep the magic going by joining the conversation online. Find us on Facebook at Rewatching the Magic, on Twitter at Rewatch the Magic, and of course, find all new episodes at rewatchingthemagic.podbean.com. Until next time, remember, the magic is for everyone. It only stops if you let it.